Hello everyone, it's Martyn Sibley here. I'm back for another Limitless Facebook Live. The sun's just decided to poke its head out in Cambridgeshire after quite a too long a time actually of cloud and drizzle, so I'm quite happy to have a bit of warm sun again. Today I really wanted to have a chat with you all about one of my first ever trips abroad independently. I think that's quite a landmark moment, and it will probably resonate with a lot of the viewers and listeners for your own first trips as well. So for those of you that don't know, I have a disability called spinal muscular atrophy. Basically that means that I'm always in a wheelchair to get around. I really can't, I can't walk at all, and my upper body is very weak as well. And I have full-time care support to assist me with hoisting and showering and getting food and drink and all of the everyday life tasks that are involved. And so with the whole holiday travel, well, when I was a child, my mum and dad obviously did all of the research, all the organising. Being a bit younger, I was probably a bit easier to lift me around and maybe just take a manual wheelchair. So those sort of childhood days were definitely a little bit easier in general, and certainly on me, because I didn't have to worry about half the things. My mum and dad did all of that for us. And then I think my first big sort of movement into independent living was when I went to university in Coventry. So that was the first time that I dealt with having carers other than my mum and my dad, and sort of getting used to, being away from the home comforts and obviously expanding horizons and enjoying the good life at university as well. And then around that time, probably in a pub after a few drinks, and some of the fears that we all might have for big ideas and big plans had subsided a little bit. And with a couple of the carers at the time in Coventry, we decided that I should go on a holiday and not go with my mum and my dad. So we're looking at places we could go and all the options that were on the table. And I was just really hit by this moment of inspiration that Australia was the place to go. I was always watching Home and Away and Neighbours as a kid, and I kind of thought, being on the other side of the world, it was a really, really big challenge, which I kind of relished the idea of. So after a couple more sober meetings, we started to tackle into the difficulties and the hurdles that we would be facing. And at that point, I did actually speak to a travel agent, which is very much how Limitless could help any of you that are going through similar worries and fears, or just physical, logistical barriers as well. And with the help of that travel agent, we found out that I could go with Singapore Airlines via Singapore. So I stopped off in Singapore for a little while, and that was a beautiful place to have a look around and take in some of the very different culture there than there would be in Australia. And then landed in Sydney and had the most phenomenal time there, looking around the harbour bridge and the opera house and getting stuck into all the Australian kind of culture and way of life. And then I took another flight with my two care support, two people doing my care, over to Melbourne, and we were there in August 2005, I believe it was. So this was the Australian winter, and it was absolutely freezing in Melbourne. So there was a whole other logistical difficulty getting around Melbourne in the snow and the cold as well. And then from Melbourne, we went up to a place near to Brisbane called Noosa, and it was a kind of surfer's paradise, and being a bit more northwards meant that the weather was far warmer and better, and we were able to sort of have a defrosting on the beach and all the rest of it. So in the end, the sort of itinerary was a week in Sydney, a week in Melbourne, and a week near to Brisbane, and then back via Singapore home. So I was gone for about 3.5 weeks altogether. And then the way it worked with the access was we made sure every hotel had an accessible room, and then my care support staff were able to be either in the same room or an adjoining room, depending what the hotel could offer. And they were all very good at making it affordable, for the fact that I was sort of going and I was paying the carers out of my social care money, but obviously the costs of the trip were going to come out of my pocket. So they were really good for helping out with that. We hired a hoist in all of the 3 locations, whereas in Singapore my 2 carers just had to lift me because it wasn't worth getting a hoist just for that kind of one night stop over both directions. All of the flights went well. I remember looking out the window in Melbourne down at the tarmac and seeing that the guys lifting my wheelchair onto the plane were having a little bit of a joyride, which obviously isn't really allowed. It was a little bit naughty, but it was actually quite funny to see them taking the chair for the spin to get it under the aeroplane. And I'd say the most important thing was the wheelchair on all of these flights. There was it must have been 5 flights in total. They were all, the wheelchair was looked after, as was I as well. And so now I just look back on this trip to Australia as that defining moment where I was able to go to the other side of the world. So my limitations that I may have had in my younger years were just blown out of the water. Everything went well, and even on the trip there was definitely 1 or 2 difficulties, I'm sure, with getting transport, like an accessible taxi, and with the carers getting tired. I remember one of them got a little bit ill in Melbourne, but those things just fade into insignificance when you're looking back 10, 11 years later now. So really it was just to share that beautiful experience I had. It always remains really fondly in my heart to this day, and also to show you that all of the barriers that we have, whether we're disabled or not, they are always possible to be overcome, and even going to the other side of the world and having an amazing time with all the Australian way of life and the culture and the food and the animals. I saw koala bears and kangaroos there as well. Was all really, really cool stuff, and really what gave me the travel bug. I think from then on I've just wanted to go and see more of the world and explore more cultures and more differences in people and everything. So yeah, definitely, if nothing else comes through, then travel is awesome. And when you're disabled, you have a disability, it doesn't need to stop you. So until the next Facebook Live, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.